Hi friends, welcome to Interactive Medicine. We are continuing our KROK-1 series. In this section, we can talk about the antimicrobial and antiparasitic drugs. So, through this series, we will cover most of the, which means almost all drugs which is connected with antimicrobial and parasitic drugs. So including if you analyze in previous years, they are asking the questions about antiviral drugs is much less than compare of antibiotic drugs. So basically they are asking conceptual questions. Uh, uh, Through this series we have two parts, and through this series we will cover all the questions about the microbial and parasitic drugs, and also we can expect some questions. We will add some questions, we will add some points that which you can expect in this year. So let's start our class. So this question is asked in 2017, and the question was, in preparation for business trip abroad, the doctor was prescribed a histoshizondicidal anti-malarial drug as a personal means of disease prevention. What drug was given to doctor? So the prophylaxis anti-malarial drug. The common prophylaxis, the recommended prophylactic drug is chingamin or chloroquine. It is an anti-malarial agent, or they will change the way to blood schizondicidal agent or plasmodicidal agent. You need to clear about these words. And also, what is its function? Just study inhibit the heme polymerase activity. I will tell you more late. I will tell you later sometime about the complete mechanism, what happens in what is the action of chloroquine in mm, uh, as an act as a anti-malarial drug. So it is a 4-amino quinolone derivative. It have large volume of distribution. Other drugs, other anti-malarial drug have compared with other anti-malarial drug. The chloroquine have large volume of distribution. That's why we are recommending this drug as a prophylaxis. So our next option was Biseptone. Biseptone. What is Biseptone or co-trimoxazole? It is not an anti-malarial drug. It is treat for pneumonia, and it is under the class of sulfonamide, and it have the bactericidal action, and it block the sequential blockade of the folic acid enzyme, and the DNA synthesis will disrupt. I will tell you in later onwards how this drug works, and how sulfonamide's drug will work, and also how quinolone drug will work. I will tell you. And doxycycline. Doxycycline is under the class of tetracycline. Other examples for doxycyclines are minocycline and metacycline, and it is treatment for bronchitis. Here, I am going to tell about how the chloroquine is working. We know what is the function of RBC basically. It carries oxygen. Okay, so oxygen is bound in hemoglobin. Okay, in human, oxygen is bound in hemoglobin, right? So hemoglobin hemoglobin will dissociate into, hemoglobin is destruct in which area? Spleen. Okay, okay, it is split into two things. What's that? Heme and globin part. Heme and globin. Okay, did you understand? Okay. Hemoglobin is converted into amino acids plus ferriprotoporphyrin 9, also known as heme. This heme is highly toxic for Plasmodium parasite. So, Plasmodium is lives in RBC of a human. Okay, uh, when uh, when the destruction of hemoglobin, the parasite will eat the hemoglobin. The parasite will eat the hemoglobin, and by using proteolytic enzymes, it uses these amino acids for its growth, its structural growth. So this hemoglobin eats by parasite, Plasmodium parasite, and heme will form and amino acid will form. So this heme is highly toxic and for parasite. So parasite will convert this heme into hemozoin. It is a non-toxic. Okay, it is a non-toxic. So we understand this mechanism. So we are thinking about what if we can add a drug and it can block this process. So the heme will not convert into hemozoin, and heme is very toxic to parasite, and eventually it will dead. So that's why we are giving chloroquine. Chloroquine become protonated in RBC, so it can inhibit this process. The heme will not convert it into hemozoin, so heme is toxic and parasite will eventually dead. This is the vacuole, food vacuole of Plasmodium. Okay, the parasite will eat the RBC, right? Okay, and the RBC get into the food vacuole of Plasmodium. So this hemoglobin is converted to hemozoin. Hemozoin is a non-toxic. The Plasmodium needs to eat the hemoglobin for amino acid, but also another product was heme. Heme is very highly toxic and it needs to convert to hemozoin. So chloroquine, which can inhibit this process. Do you understand? Okay. Mefloquine, it's it is also an anti-malarial drug, but here we have an option, mefloquine. It is also an anti-malarial drug, but we didn't prescribe. It has local irritations, and it is recommended for prophylaxis except those with no chingaminum resistance. And quinine is anti-malarial agent. We have another option, quinine. Quinine is also anti-malarial agent, but it is banned. It has serious and life-threatening hematological adverse effects. So we didn't prescribe that drug, quinine. So example for fluoroquinolones are anti-malarial drugs. Example example for anti-malarial drugs: chingamin, mefloquine, primaquine, and also some sulfonamides can give. Sulfonamides is antifolate, antifolate, anti antifolate, antifolate drugs. I will tell about what is the mechanism behind sulfonamides. So sulfonamides, it have antifolate. It is a antifolate drugs. It is also a anti-malarial drug. So our next question is, A 26-year-old woman with bronchitis administered broad-spectrum antibiotic as a casual treatment. Specify the drug. Okay, dexamethasone. What is dexamethasone? It's a glucocorticoid. Ambrexol. What is ambrexol? Ambrexol is a mucolytic agent that helps in thin the mucus. So it is not a broad spectrum antibiotic, and it is used in bronchopulmonary disease, easing for productive cough and easing the breath. We said that here. Dexamethasone, which have corticosteroid, it is a corticosteroid and it has anti-inflammatory actions. Other drugs in corticosteroid family: prednisolone, prednisolone, beclomethasone. Beclomethasone we use in the case of asthma attack. Asthma. Then Bacillus BCG vaccine, full form Bacillus calmette-guerin vaccine. This vaccine is primarily used against tuberculosis. So when we talk about tuberculosis, the most effective drug for tuberculosis, rifampicin. Another drug for tuberculosis, isoniazid. What is its side effect? Polyneuritis. Polyneuritis. And which vitamins deficiency it will cause? Why polyneuritis is happen? Because the deficiency of vitamin B6 or pyridoxine. Interferon. What is meant by interferon? It is a signaling protein released by host cells in response to presence of several viruses. Virus-infected cell will release interferons, causing nearby cells to heighten or stimulate their antiviral defenses. Doxycycline is a broad-spectrum tetracycline antibiotic. Broad-spectrum tetracycline antibiotic and treatment for bronchitis. What is its mechanism? Inhibit protein synthesis by binding to 30S ribosomes. Another example for tetracycline: minocycline, metacycline. Very good. Next question. To treat bronchitis, the patient was prescribed a beta-lactam antibiotic. Mechanism of action is inhibition of murin production. Murin can be seen in cell wall. So, cell wall inhibition, which results in the death of causative agent. Name the drug. Streptomycin under the class of aminoglycoside. Azithromycin, which class? Azithromycin be administered when causative agent resistant to penicillin and sensitive to macrolides. Azithromycin second generation macrolide. Erythromycin first generation macrolide. Actually, azithromycin is under the class of azolide. But we have a question that azithromycin is sensitive to macrolides. Sorry, causative agent is resistant to penicillin and causative agent is uh, sensitive to macrolides. So that's why I write here macrolides here, macrolides. Streptomycin is a group of aminoglycoside, inhibit protein synthesis, interfere with attachment of mRNA with ribosome, so no translation occur. It is the adverse effect is vestibulotoxic. And what are the other drugs in aminoglycoside family? Who knows? Very good. Gentamicin. It is also vestibulotoxic. And ototoxic drugs, kanamycin. amikacin, neomycin. Okay, we can just look this diagram. Okay, this is our bacteria. Okay, this is our bacteria, and cell wall inhibition of cell wall synthesis by penicillin, cephalosporin drugs, bacitracin, vancomycin. Okay, if it is uh, sorry, injury to plasma membrane, polymyxin B. Okay, if it is fungus cell membrane, fungus cell membrane is made up of ergosterol. What? Ergosterol. So which drug interfere with ergosterol? Ketoconazole, fluconazole, and itraconazole, amphotericin B. We will talk later. And injury to plasma membrane caused by polymyxin B. Inhibition of protein synthesis. Before that, we need to inhibition of nucleic acid replication is quinolones. Quinolones. And inhibition of nucleic acid transcription, rifampicin. Inhibition of protein synthesis or translation, chloramphenicol. Erythromycin under the class of which class? Erythromycin, azithromycin are under the class of macrolide. Tetracycline also inhibition of protein synthesis. Streptomycin, aminoglycoside, block protein synthesis or inhibit translation process. So inhibition synthesis of essential metabolites like enzyme activity, inhibition of enzyme activity, sulfonamide, and synthesis of essential metabolite, trimethoprim. Sulfonamide will inhibit the enzyme known as dihydro dihydropyric acid. Dihydropyric acid. I will talk later. Okay, this is not good. And trimethoprim inhibit which enzyme? Dihydrofolate reductase. Okay, I will tell more clearly later. Okay. And ciprofloxacin. Ciprofloxacin is under fluoroquinolone family. Treatment for gonorrhea. Interfere with DNA synthesis by inhibit topoisomerase 2 or DNA gyrase and topoisomerase 4, so replication of DNA stops. So in this diagram we can talk little bit. So fluoroquinolones. Okay, quinolones example ciprofloxacin and treatment for gonorrhea. Okay, this is a diagram. This is our DNA. Just consider. Okay, this DNA is going to replication, undergoing replication. So we already studied that replication fork will forms. So this is our replication fork. Okay, during unwinding the DNA have a tension to recoil again. Okay, so this recoiling, the relaxation of this DNA is this recoiling, uh, the tension in the DNA is decreased by DNA gyrase. So fluoroquinolone will inhibit this DNA gyrase. So the tension will increase and the DNA will again join. Did you understand? First, we need to unwind the DNA by using the enzyme helicase enzyme. But they have the tendency to gain its initial position. It is prevented by the enzyme DNA gyrase. DNA gyrase. So fluoroquinolone will block this drug, so DNA will attain its same position. Okay, so replication will not work, and the what is topoisomerase 4 function? Fourth function. This is prevent the tension, and it is helps to replication. It is helps to replication of fully DNA, topoisomerase 4. So if you block this topoisomerase 4, the replication of DNA will not work. So bacterial DNA can't replicate. So there is no protein formation. Eventually, bacteria will dead. Understand? Bijiquinol is quinine family. One of our option was bijiquinol or quinine bismuth iodide. We already said about quinine. Here. Quinine is an anti-malarial agent banned due to serious life-threatening and hematological adverse effects. So, penicillin, G sodium salt. It is treatment for bronchitis. It is beta-lactam antibiotic. Doxycycline is a tetracycline. It also helps in bronchitis, but it is broad spectrum tetracycline group, not beta-lactam. It inhibits protein synthesis. Tetracycline inhibits protein synthesis. Penicillin inhibits cell wall synthesis. So don't confuse. Okay, next question. Patient with pulmonary tuberculosis. Most effective anti-tuberculosis antibiotic is rifampicin. Rifampicin is a macrolide. Most effective anti-tuberculosis drug inhibit the protein synthesis. So by inhibit the protein synthesis by stopping the transcription by binding with the DNA dependent RNA polymerase. This is the enzyme. DNA dependent RNA polymerase inhibition. Furosolidone. Furosolidone is used to treat bacterial and protozoal infection like UTIs and giardiasis, and it inhibits enzymes of carbohydrate metabolism. It is under the class of nitrofuran class. Furosolidone. Treatment for bacteria and protozoal infections like UTS and giardiasis. Inhibit the enzymes of carbohydrate metabolism. It is under the class of nitrofuran. Tetracycline. It is a bacteriostatic and inhibit the protein synthesis by binding with 30S, important, 30S ribose unit. Doxycycline, metacycline, minocycline are the examples. Streptocide is an antibacterial agent for streptococci. Co-trimoxazole is a combination of trimethoprim and sulfamethoxazole. It is under the class of sulfonamide. These are combinative sulfonamide. Co-trimoxazole. Another name of co-trimoxazole is Biseptone. Biseptone. Okay, we are talking about the mechanism of action of sulfonamide. Okay, we already said that it is a anti-folate drugs. Sulfonamides are analogues of para-amino benzoic amino acid or anti-vitamin PABA. Anti-vitamin para-amino benzoic acid. Okay, dihydropterate, diphosphate and para-amino benzoic acid is converted into dihydropteroic acid by the enzyme dihydropteroid synthetis. It will eventually converted into dihydrofolic acid. By the help of dihydrofolate reductase, it will be converted into tetrahydrofolic acid. On last section, I tell about dihydropteroid synthetis. This is the enzyme dihydropteroid synthetis. So sulfonamides works here and it is competitively inhibit dihydropteroid synthetis. So dihydrofolic acid will not form in this case. And tetrahydrofolic acid is formed from dihydrofolic acid, which is the enzyme dihydrofolate reductase. Tetrahydrofolic acid is a methyl donor, which is essential for binding with deoxythymidine deoxythymidine monophosphate, which is very important for DNA synthesis. So actually bacterial DNA will not form in this case. Sulfonamides block this reaction. Okay. In human, we don't need PABA. We have exogenous folic acid, so it is not a big problem for humans. The use of sulfonamides include antimalarial and also inclusion conjunctivitis. Example for this, sulfadimethoxazone. Example for a sulfonamide is sulfadimethoxazone or co-trimoxazole. A patient has diagnosed with gonorrhea, fluoroquinolones, ciprofloxacin. We already said that just before. Ciprofloxacin under the class of quinine family for treatment for gonorrhea. Furosolidone is used to treat bacterial and protozoal infections like UTI and giardiasis. Inhibit the enzymes of carbohydrate metabolism. It is under the class of nitrofuran. Fluorouracil. Next option was fluorouracil is a class of medication called antimetabolites. It works by killing fast-growing cells such as abnormal cells in actinic keratosis, and basal cell carcinoma. Actually, fluorouracil will which will kill the abnormal cells, which means in cancer, for an example, cancer, what is meant by cancer? It is the uncontrolled proliferation of cells. So these are abnormal cells. So fluorouracil can kill these abnormal cells. That's why we are using fluorouracil in cancer treatment, like colorectal cancer, breast cancer, and stomach cancer, basal cell carcinoma, then actinic keratosis. Sulfocarbamide is a blood sugar lowering drug acting on the vegetative nervous system. Cefazolin is under the class of cephalosporin, which inhibit cell wall synthesis. Cefazolin is a first class generation of cephalosporin. Second generation, cefotetanum. Third generation, cefoperazone. Fourth generation, cefosopranum. Cefotetanum, cefoperazone, cefosopranum. Next question. UN volunteers have arrived in Nigeria to assist the locals in aftermath of earthquakes. What drug should they prescribe for individual chemoprophylaxis for malaria? No doubt Chingamin or chloroquine. It is a 4-amino quinolone derivative. It's under the class of quinolone. Inhibit heme polymerase activity. It have large volume of distribution. Another drug is Primaquine. It is also an anti-malarial drug. It is not 4-amino, it is 8-amino quinolone derivative. Not active alone with acute attacks of Plasmodium vivax and Plasmodium ovale. So administer chloroquine after 14 days course of Primaquine. Okay, after 14 days course of Primaquine, we need to administer chloroquine because it is not active along with the acute attacks of Plasmodium vivax and Plasmodium ovale. Pyrantel is an antihelminthic drug treatment for pinworm infections. Pyrimethamine is a antiparasitic drug treatment for toxoplasmosis and malaria. Important treatment for toxoplasmosis and malaria. Interferons are signaling proteins made and released by host cells in response to the presence of several viruses. Virus infected cell will release interferons causing nearby cells to stimulate their antivirus defenses. So we need to highlight, maybe we will forget later, these two drugs. Pyrantel, antihelminthic, pyrimethamine, antiparasitic drugs. And another example for antihelminthic drug, mebendazole. 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 Okay. Mebendazole. Another, our next question. Prescription of penicillin G sodium salt has caused development of neurotoxic effects, hallucination, convulsion. Such reactions is the result of antagonism with the following neurotransmitter. So actually they are asking what is the mechanism of hallucination and convulsion, or which neurotransmitter will block during hallucination and convulsion. It is also related with physiology. So in addition to playing integral role in motivational and reward process, dopamine, our the GABA is a, we already said that GABA is the answer, and because it is an inhibitory hormone. So inhibitory neurotransmitter. Inhibitory. Inhibitory neurotransmitter. Okay. So we are talking about dopamine now. Dopamine is responsible for motivation and reward processing, and also it has some motor control as well as triggering a release of various hormones. High levels of dopamine enhance concentration. It will boost the mood and it have pro-social effects. Serotonin, our next option. It is regulating mood, not boosting. It is regulating. It can boost or it can be decreased. Affects the sleep cycle, appetite, digestion, and other physical process. Adenosine is naturally occurring substance that relaxes and dilates blood vessel. Adenosine can relax and dilate our blood vessel. So acetylcholine, finally, it is the chief neurotransmitter of the parasympathetic nervous system, which contracts smooth muscles, dilates blood vessels, increases body secretions, and slow heart rate. So next question, administration of doxycycline has caused an imbalance of symbiotic intestinal microflora. What kind of imbalance caused antibiotic therapy? So when an antibiotic therapy were prescribed, there will be a chance for destruction of our own bacteria where live in our body. It's known as microflora. It's our natural microflora. Our microflora can be damaged. This process known as dysbacteriosis. So in order to prevent the dysbacteriosis, we need to prescribe eubiotics along with antibiotics. So a super infection, we are focus on superimposed infection, or superimposed infection is a second infection superimposed on an earlier one, especially by a different microbial agent or exogenous or endogenous origin. For an example, penicillin can cause superinfection of vaginal candidiasis. Bacteriosis, any infection by bacteria. Bacteriosis means any infection by bacteria. And another question, they are asked this question in 2016 and 15. Halogen containing antiseptic with fungicidal properties and treat dermatomycosis. The answer is iodine solution. So if you find this word halogen containing antiseptic and you have fungicidal property, and the answer is iodine solution. 4% formalin we can use it in neutralize the diphtheria toxin, and it is for the production of anatoxin. 4% formalin or formaldehyde. Methylene blue used for methemoglobinemia. The ferrous become ferric, which means that in the RBC we have hemoglobin. In normal case, the hemoglobin, yeah, in the center it have the iron group. The iron group is under the oxidation state of +2 in normal case. Then only the oxygen can bind with the RBC or hemoglobin. So if some conditions where the iron oxidation stage change from +2 to +3, then we can say it's a methemoglobinemia, because the oxygen can't bind to hemoglobin in that state, so cyanosis will produced at that time. And methemoglobinemia is treated by methylene blue. Brilliant green is a topical antiseptic and effective against gram-positive bacteria. Brilliant green is a topical antiseptic and effective against gram-positive bacteria. Boric acid make the blood vessels constrict, coagulate, and precipitate protein, reduce the secretion of glands. Boric acid helps in blood vessel become constriction. Adenosine, blood vessel dilation. Next question is, a 5-year-old child diagnosed with acute right distal pneumonia, sputum inoculation revealed that the causative agent is resistant to penicillin and sensitive to macrolides. What drug should be prescribed? That is azithromycin. Azithromycin is a macrolide. More specifically, it's an azolite. Tetracycline. The groups under tetracycline is doxycycline, metacycline, minocycline. Example for aminoglycosides: gentamicin, streptomycin. These are vestibulotoxic. Adverse effects: vestibulotoxic. Somehow ototoxic effect. Example for ototoxic effects under the group of aminoglycoside, that is kanamycin, amikacin, neomycin. Broad spectrum penicillin, amoxicillin, and ampicillin, which will inhibit cell wall synthesis. An 18-year-old patient has developed candidiasis after, after the case of pneumonia treated with beta-lactam antibiotic. What antimycotic agent should be prescribed? That is fluconazole. Okay, let's look into the options. Trimethoprim or sulfamethoxazole Biseptone. This is sulfonamide. This is a anti-malarial or antibiotic drug. So it is not for candidiasis fungal. And sulfathiazole also sulfonamide, and ampicillin is yes, very good. It is under the class of broad spectrum of penicillin, and it is not for candidiasis, not for fungal treatment. Streptomycin, also antibiotic against bacteria, under the class of aminoglycoside. So the one drug remaining is fluconazole. It is antifungal drug. We can use mainly two groups of drugs against fungus. First one is antibiotics, second one is azole groups. The antibiotics include amphotericin B and nystatin. Only amphotericin B and nystatin. Azole group include fluconazole, ketoconazole, itraconazole, and other group you have terbinafine. And just study one drug, terbinafine. Mechanism: it is interfere with ergosterol. I already said that fungus have a cell membrane and it is made up of ergosterol. In humans we have cholesterol. So these drugs, these antifungal drugs, works with or interfere with ergosterol, so it will disrupt the cell membrane and eventually leads to the death of the fungus. And streptomycin under the class of aminoglycoside, and other drugs gentamicin, kanamycin, amikacin, neomycin. Ampicillin is a broad spectrum penicillin. Amoxicillin also broad spectrum penicillin. Sulfathiazole sulfothiazole, trimethoprim sulfamethoxazole, or it's a combinative drug known as Biseptone, is a sulfonamide. It is antifoliate drugs. Another question is malaria. Malaria is treated with structural analogs of vitamin B2 riboflavin. These drugs disrupt the synthesis of the following enzymes in the plasmodium. That is FAD-dependent dehydrogenase. If you understand riboflavin, that's flavin. If you know the full form for FAD, flavin adenine dinucleotide, it is easy to pick up the answer from here. So we are taking this option aminotransferase. It is catalyze the reaction of transfer of amino group. I will tell now. Okay, what happens here? So aminotransferase. Aspartic acid is an amino acid, so transaminase or transferase. Just consider glutamate is an amino acid and it have 5 carbon. Oxaloacetate is a keto acid, it has 4 carbon, and the glutamate have amino group. You know, every amino acid have a carboxylic group and an amino group, and it reacts with an alpha keto acid, so it have main group is ketone group here. So in this reaction they will exchange their functional groups. They are going to exchange their functional group by the help of aminotransferase enzyme. So only changing these functional groups, so oxaloacetic acid become aspartate, which is a 4 carbon amino acid, aspartic acid. The glutamate become alpha ketoglutaric acid. It is an alpha keto acid. You can see its ketone. It goes into Tetracycline. You know that one. This is the principle we need to understand. Okay, they transfer its amine and ketone. This reaction happens between amino acid and a alpha keto acid. Just for an example, glutamate can be converted into alpha ketoglutaric acid. Oxaloacetic acid is converted to aspartic acid. Alpha ketoglutaric acid is 5 carbon compound of alpha keto acid. So peptidase or protease, what is that? It is a trypsin that catalyzes or increases the rate of proteolysis, the breakdown of proteins into smaller polypeptides or single amino acids. So peptidases will break down the proteins and into simple fractions. That this enzyme works. Other enzymes are linked with electron transport system. That's why I didn't tell about these options first. So this is our electron transport system. First we have glycolysis. The glucose get into glycolysis and form 2-pyruvic acid, and this pyruvic acid goes into TCA cycle. In TCA cycle it produce NAD, NADH, FADH. So, and also carbon dioxide and water. Okay, but in this case we are focusing NADH and FADH. So we need energy. That's why these cycles are happen. So From NADH and FADH, we get ATP. So that is electron transport chain system. This is the complex one. This one is complex one, and this is complex 2, complex 3, and complex 4. The name of complex 1 is NADH dehydrogenase. Sorry, NAD dependent dehydrogenase. So NAD dependent dehydrogenase is inhibited by rotenol. The complex number 2 is known as FAD dependent dehydrogenase or succinate dehydrogenase. This is complex number 2, and which it is inhibited by structural analogs of vitamin B2 or riboflavin. And we can tell the complex 3, which is cytochrome BC1 complex, which is inhibited by antiacid. And complex number 4, cytochrome oxidase, we have option in this question, which is inhibited by cyanide or carbon monoxide. So I think this video is helpful for you, and we have another part for this antimicrobial and antiparasitic drugs. Just wait for, we will come. Bye friends, have a nice day.